Good afternoon, or should I say good evening, everyone. Good evening, Facebook fans. Good evening, family of the YouTube, and good evening, everyone in general. My name is Linda Rigby. Some of you know me as Bella, aka. I like to thank everyone first off for coming and just attending. We got a treat for you tonight. We are going to be talking about powering the vote, your voice. But without further ado, for a little bit of entertainment, for some of you who are probably creating dinner or just had dinner or just got off work, relax, have a seat, and enjoy the infamous Reginald C. Harris as he ushers us in for the night. Take it away, Reginald. Wow. Love is the message that jazz saxophonist Reginald Harris conveys every time he performs. He captivates his listeners with his smooth tones and styles. Reginald is a member of the civic group Men of Distinction of the Atlanta and affiliated with the Women of Distinction. I like to take the time to say thank you, Reginald, for opening us up. Let's give him a round of applause, everybody. Now, for those who know Bella, she's always handling her business. So let's get right into why we're here tonight. I'm going to read a few bios, open up, and we're going to have a nice discussion tonight. So, my first guest tonight is Andrea Young Jones. She is the Southern Regional Director for When We All Vote, Michelle Obama's nonpartisan organization to increase voter registration and participation in every election. She has worked to strengthen a network of local partners in southern states to drive When We All Vote's national programming, including the coordination with mayors and other elected officials. And she also engages with local grassroots organizations to support and enhance the voter outreach. We're going to talk about that tonight among the young and inconsistent voters. Remember, I said that. Andrea has a master's of public administration and over 10 years of experience in community engagement and grassroots organizing. She has served in senior roles overseeing African American outreach and engagement for successful mayors' campaigns in Houston, Texas. That experience led her to be a rewarding career as an executive with the city of Houston, building partnerships and organizing citywide community reinvestment initiatives to increase affordable housing and advance civil rights law and principles. Andrea is a graduate of Hampton University and a native of Atlanta, Georgia. She is married to Roddy, better known as Jones, and together they are raising 3 sons, 15, 11, and 4. And boy, you got your hands full, Andrea. She's an avid reader and a publisher of children's books and authors. The next person, without further ado, is our own Ambassador Andrew Young. He has helped to change the course of history as a leader in the civil rights movement. He has built a remarkable legacy as a civic activist, elected official, groundbreaking ambassador, social entrepreneur, and advisor to presidents. Today, he leads the Andrew J. Young Foundation efforts to develop and support new generations of visionary leaders who will create sustainable global approaches to economical development, poverty alleviation, and the challenge of hunger. I can go on and on, as you all know. I say that all the time, but without further ado, I am humbly like to introduce Ambassador Andrew Young and Andrea Young for a nice discussion about voting. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Let's get right into it. Ambassador and Andre, I'm going to charge y'all to lead this conversation we're going to have with the audience tonight. So everyone has their eyes on Georgia. I think by now, unless you're hiding and unless you live underneath of a rock, January 5th will denote the date for the election for the U.S. Senate race in the state of Georgia. So tonight I thought I'd gather a few of my friends and colleagues, audience, and so we have a discussion about when we all vote, why we need to vote, and your voice to vote. So Ambassador Andrea, take it away.
I'll let Ambassador Young begin, since he is the patriarch of the voting rights movement here, and I just really want to hear what he has to say and how you say it in history and how this is going to affect the future of Georgia and the nation.
Well, I tell you what, I came to Georgia first time to live in 1954 down in Thomasville and Beachton, Georgia. And I went to a meeting in Columbus at the AME Church. And they had just won the Primus King case that made the Democratic white primary illegal. And John Wesley Dobbs was there, and all of the AME bishops. And I guess I was about 22 then. And they asked me, would I be willing to run a voter registration drive in Thomas County and Grady County? That was Thomasville and Beachton, Georgia, right down on the Florida line. And as far as I was concerned, that was fine. And But that's how long we've been at this. And Thurgood Marshall came down here in 1948, probably before that, and with the AME Church, the Reverend Primus King, and the Prince Hall Masons, led by Maynard Jackson's grandfather, John Wesley Dobbs. They fought in the courts and went up to the Supreme Court to get the right to vote. And every bit of progress we've made here has been related to the vote. And there were no paved roads. In fact, we used to say that when you want to know where the rich folks live, that's where the pavement is. The poor white folks, they live on blacktop, and they have blacktop roads or gravel roads. When you get to our neighborhoods, there's nothing but mud and potholes. And so your roads, your schools, your diet, your life depends on the vote. And by the time I got up to be mayor of Atlanta, I realized that the people who vote end up sitting at the table when the money is divided up. And that if you don't have somebody at the table representing you when the money is divided up, you do not get your share. That's whether that's healthcare, whether that's education, whether that's paved roads, whether that's job opportunity. Everything depends on the vote. And as we increased our vote, our wealth increased, our educational opportunities increased, and everything about Atlanta began to happen. And it was always, well, all the way back in the 40s when Mayor Hartsfield brought Delta to Atlanta and put up red lights on Peachtree Street and bought that land for the airport. They voted him out of office. And the white folk began to realize that we don't have enough progressive white folks here to move this state and this city forward. So Ivan Allen was the president of the Chamber of Commerce, and he and Mr. Woodruff of Coca-Cola and got together with Dr. Mays and Dr. Brawley and the whole establishment out at Atlanta University and Morris Brown. And they decided that we have to have a coalition that moves the city forward. So almost from the time I got here I got to Atlanta in 1961, and that's when Ivan Allen was elected mayor. And then Sam Massell was elected mayor. But none of them got the majority of the white vote. It's always been the black vote that has pushed the city forward and made it possible to have an airport. Those highways around there actually came out of direct political patronage. John Lewis went up to campaign for a congressman in New Jersey when we were back in the movement days. And when I got to Congress, he was in 72. Now, John went to campaign for him in 68. I went to campaign for him in 72. And by that time, he was the chairman of the Transportation Committee in the House of Representatives. And our roads were bad here. And we laid out that whole expressway system, 75, 85 downtown behind Grady, was a 4-lane road. Now I think it's about 12 lanes. We didn't have an I-20. We didn't have a 285. All of those things came because the guy that John had campaigned for when he was with SNCC was now the chairman of the Transportation Committee. And I went to him and reminded him of that. And he cut loose $900 million to help us get our roads up to par before the Democratic Convention got here in 1984. At the same time, we were building the airport. And we built the airport with no taxpayer money because we learned how to go to Wall Street and design projects so that they would pay for themselves. But Maynard wouldn't let any contract go through where minority or female-owned companies didn't have at least 25% of the business in every contract. When I came in, I just eased it up to 35. Shirley Franklin took it up to, and Bill Campbell took it up to 40. And I think it got to be around 50% when Kasim was there. And so that still didn't take money away from white people, though, because it was more money coming in that was being divided a little more fairly. So politics, and this, you could do the same thing with the school system. Georgia State now graduates more Black students than any school in the world every year. And that's a combination of good elementary and secondary schools and the Hope Scholarship, all of which were decided on the vote, by votes. So you vote for your life. And if you want a good life, you got to vote often, and you've got to stay on top of the issues, and you've got to bring some reason and vision to the table. And that's what I've been trying to do.
And Ambassador Young, you have been doing that. Like, I like how you went back to the history of how this has been going on for a very long time. It's almost like a lot of our young people, and even people who are in their middle age, they think, when is it going to end? When are we going to have to stop doing this? Stop marching, stop voting, stop being involved. No. It's never going to end. It's a part of our civic duty as Americans, as African Americans, as understanding our history, because our country has always moved towards democracy. It never started as democracy, but it's moving towards that. And we have to be a part of that change. And we have to hold people accountable. If we believe and feel that they are not representing us, then we have to be involved so we can let them know, hey, we're going to get rid of you and put somebody else in there who is going to represent us. It's never going to end. It's not going to change. It's almost like raising children. They're always going to be here. And we're always going to have to care about them. We're always going to have to encourage them and support them. That is life. And so we have to be able to understand how voting is a part of our civic duty, but also a part of our lives, and how we are able to, like you said, be empowered, but also uplift, and then also have power and have the ability to each generation to do better. Because if it wasn't for what your generation did, then my father wouldn't have gotten the position that he's gotten into, and I wouldn't be in the position that I'm in, and then my children wouldn't benefit from that. That's what history is. That's what families do. And we wanted to be a part of that. And so that's so interesting that you went back into history for that. And then how you bring it to the future about what happened with the airport, but then also what happened with the Olympics. And I was a part of the dream team, the children who went over to Tokyo. I was a part of that group that went over there in 1990, was it
Now,
19?
where else does a middle school child get to go to Tokyo
Tokyo. I still think about that. I still
to
talk
represent
about
our
that.
city?
Yes.
What year was that, Andrea?
I think that was 1990.
1990.
1990, because
Yeah.
we went over there to talk to the International Olympic Committee to ask them to vote for Atlanta to host the 1996 Olympic Games. And I remember.
They were so little and cute. And I walked down there and I was so proud of them because they were singing, "The world has one dream,
Yes.
to play as one team,
Yes.
against all odds, something else." And they had on these red coats and white skirts and pants.
Wow.
And I was in tears.
I remember you speaking to us and talking to us and saying how important it was that we were there. We were the only delegation that had children and young people as a part of the process, and able to speak to the IOC, to International Committee members, and being just, I haven't been back to Tokyo since, but that is always going to be a part of my history and me understanding Atlanta and Georgia and how it took a coalition of government and businesses to bring the Olympics to Atlanta, and how that really put us on the map, so that's something that can never be taken away. So I and that's history, and that speaks to our ability as a people to organize and to do great things. We were a Black-run city that got the Olympics.
That's right. So, Andrea, let me stop right there. This is a great segue. We all know Ambassador Andrew Young. Yes, we do. But I want the audience to know you, as you and I worked together back in August. I want you to get to know and tell this audience who you are and what you represent.
Well, I am the regional director for When We All Vote, the Southern regional director for When We All Vote. And my duties with the organization is to help grassroots organizations enhance what they are already doing on the ground to encourage voter participation and voter engagement. So one of the things that we did in Atlanta, or in Georgia specifically, is that for the runoff election, we registered 3,000 people for the runoff election. But then for the overall general election, we registered 76,000 people. And that made a huge difference in terms of what we did to make sure that people understood that they where they could find their polling place, how they could get their mail-in ballot, how they could vote early. We created a COVID-friendly voter engagement events where people could get food and PPE so they could come and vote as a family and make voting a celebratory event, because we wanted people to understand that when you vote, you're not just voting simply because of what you want and what you need. You are also voting for your community and your family as a whole. So that was very important for us to do. We worked with the New Georgia Project, All Voting is Local, and Pro Georgia, and other organizations to provide micro grants to them, to support them in digital marketing, to support them with mobilization, to help them with volunteers, because these organizations have been on the ground for so long, since before we started in 2018, that it was important to us to make sure that we enhanced what they did, supported them, helped them with money and funding, but then also gave them a national platform. And so that was very important. And that was one of the co-chairs, Michelle Obama's mission, was to make sure that we celebrated the people who are already here working, and that we helped to encourage them to keep going. Because as you know, the New Georgia Project started 10 years ago, and now they're just not getting their kudos for everything that they've done in terms of Georgia. And what they are going to do is going to be mimicked in other cities and states as well, because they showed that it could work. So that is what I did with When We All Vote. And what I love doing is to help encourage people and enhance what people are already doing, because as Ambassador Young said, it's the history there. We didn't start it, and we're not going to end it. It's going to keep going.
That's great. Now, you and I work together, and so is Ambassador during the month of August for the Women's Equality Week and for the League of Women Voters celebrating the 100th anniversary. I learned a lot about your organization. Talk a little bit, if you can, about just the concept for First Lady Michelle Obama and Valerie Jarrett, just the passion and the drive that they had to start this organization, and how it parallels with other organizations, along with what Ambassador talked about.
Well, one of the things that they wanted to make sure that we did was that we reached inconsistent voters. We wanted to create super voters. We want people not only to vote in every 4 years, we want people to vote every year. Every year there is something happening in your local government. There's school board, there's city council, there's also congressional races, there's state house races, there's state representative races. All of these races matter. Just like Ambassador Young said, they have something to do with your roads, your schools, your streets, your air, your environment. Everything that creates and enhances the quality of life has to do with the people who represent you. So one of the things that Michelle and Obama did and Valerie Jarrett did is that they said that when we get people out to vote, when we make voting and change the culture of voting and make it a part of life in the sense where it's not a chore, but it's a part of your civic engagement, everything that you do. You go to the grocery store, you go to work, you go to school, and also you vote. They wanted to create an organization that did that and make it nonpartisan so people could understand that voting shouldn't be partisan. There shouldn't be one party that wants to make voting enhance it and to make it more free and more fair and to allow people the opportunity to be engaged in selecting their representatives. And so we made it nonpartisan to make sure that people understood that that's not necessary to have a partisan type of a program. When we vote, you are voting for the future, and not everybody has the same ideas. Not everybody has the same ideas in terms of how they want to fix things, but everyone deserves to have a seat at the table and deserves to be a part of the process to elect their representatives. And so what they did is that we started in 2018, where we worked with grassroots organizations to do different types of events at college campuses and at high schools with My School Votes. And then we expanded and went to other states, into Georgia, into North Carolina, into the Midwest, into Boston, into California, to make sure that we are reaching out to all types of voters and that we are making sure that people understand the process and that they are included in the voting of their elected leaders.
That's good information. I hope everyone is really getting a history lesson. I want to segue a little bit and pose this question to Ambassador and you, Andrea. I know for me, collaboration with a capital C is key in anything we do in life. I want Ambassador to speak to, and you, Andrea, about it's important to collaborate, partnership, getting together for the same common goal.
Well, you have to have a 60% coalition to win things now. It takes 60 votes to stop the filibuster in the Senate. And that's what this election is about. Who controls the Senate of the United States of America? And we have an opportunity to do that. But because we are officially a nonpartisan operation, let me go back to that same election in the 50s. And because when I came here as a Democrat, because I was a child of Franklin Roosevelt and the New Deal. But John Wesley Dobbs said to me, look, we need you to vote for Eisenhower. And I said, but I'm a Democrat. He said, yeah, you could be a Democrat in Washington, New Orleans, Connecticut, and school, but down here in Georgia right now, and he said something, we have no permanent friends and no permanent enemies, only permanent interests.
Oh.
And he said, it's in our interest now to vote for Eisenhower, because if Eisenhower wins, there are no white Republicans. We will get to nominate all of the federal judges for the whole South, see? And sure enough, that's what happened. And this was in 56 when Eisenhower ran. By the time I got back down here again in the 60s, every civil rights victory we had, we won the case under one of those Republican appointees that Black people had recommended to Eisenhower and he had appointed. The same thing happened with Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter was a Democrat and he was a conservative Democrat, in many ways. But he said to us, I will put the most qualified person in to any vacancy. And it doesn't matter to me what color they are, but I'll assure you that I'll have Black judges and Black administrators in any position that they're qualified for, and especially where they're most qualified. He appointed more Black judges in the 4 years that he was president than all the other presidents combined. See, but there was a young lady in town today, Barbara Williams Skinner, from Washington, and she was on the committee before President Carter was elected, go through the book of appointments and to pick the appointments that would help us the most. And I remember, I guess many of you know Alexis Herman, who was she was Secretary of Housing and Urban Development under Bill Clinton. But under Carter, she had a no-name job. She was Deputy Assistant Secretary of Manpower. And so people were asking her, and she was very young, said, why do you have her buried down there? And the answer was, because that's where the money is. She had a budget by herself, and she was in her early 20s then. Mm-hmm. She had a budget of $16 billion. And any city that wanted to put together a manpower training program, she could write the order herself. It didn't have to go back through Congress. It didn't have to have a whole lot of red tape. And so really, that's what politics is about. Everybody pays taxes, even when you a little kid in school and you buy a soft drink and a apple or something, you're going to pay a 1 cent sales tax. And what happens to that tax?
Right.
If you're not represented when the money's divided up, you don't get your share.
Yes. That's public money. A lot of people say that money belongs to the public. The public pays in it, and the public is supposed to get it back. That's the general welfare of what our leaders are supposed to do. And one of the things that I forgot to mention when you were speaking is about judges in the Senate and how important it is for us to have people in positions on the federal bench, which are lifelong appointments, in those positions who understand civil rights, who understand voting rights, who understand healthcare, who understand education, who look at it from a holistic point of view and seeing that the public is needed and necessary, not the individual, but the public is needed and necessary to make sure that our democracy continues. So we have to have an educated populace. We have to have a healthy populace in order for our country to continue and thrive. And so having control of the Senate will allow people to be able to, who have those views and who have those beliefs, to be put in positions on the federal benches that are lifelong appointments that help to secure voting rights and civil rights. And also the administrative state comes in, like as you mentioned about having people in those key positions in federal agencies to make sure that they are doing the things that are necessary to protect the general welfare, and that they are distributing the funding, the public money, in a fair and open process. It's extremely important. And who we vote for as president and who we have as a representative matters. If you don't get involved, if you don't understand how that all interconnects, then that is how it puts you in a position as an individual, but then as a community, to not get all of the benefits that are afforded to you as an American citizen. So that's important.
That's good, Andrea. I'm going to hold a button right there. Andrea, you touched on it. I want Ambassador to expound on it. People still ask me, just being informative with the league, why does this particular election matter? I don't understand. And I want the history lesson to come out of Ambassador's mouth. Please explain in simple terms why this election, Ambassador, is so important in terms of these two people getting into the Senate. Please explain that to some of us who don't understand.
The laws are made by the House of Representatives and the Senate. And each Georgia, I think, has 13 members of the Congress, but only 2 senators. Well, this is the first time in a long time that one senator, his term came up, and the other senator was suffering from Parkinson's disease and retired early. So we now have 2 Senate seats that are vacant. And what we've never had before, we have 2 challengers that are, one, they're younger, they're smarter, and for the first time ever, I think, they have as much money coming in here from around the country as the opposition does. But I like to put it in simpler terms than the politics of it. That we all know that the world goes round and round and round. Last week, we passed a star in the sky that people said might have been the same star that the wise men saw when Jesus was born.
Yes.
1,000 years ago. Well, the world is going to keep on going around. The mistake that some people make is they want to turn it around and make it go the other way. Well, Paul Laurence Dunbar has a poem, young man, your arms is too short to box with God.
Yes.
And so we had some people that actually thought that they could box with God. That it could change the way the world's turning. That they could stop diseases by building walls. Well, diseases come through the air. And America has never tried to stop the world from turning. We just want to be in the front of the line so that we can kind of help decide how it turns, where it turns, and what the impact is on the citizens wherever they live. Your father was down in South Africa as the AME bishop. And the AME church has always been a church it's the only church I know where in order to be baptized in that church, you have to be a registered voter. But
great strategy. I like that.
They took that gospel to South Africa too. And the reason Nelson Mandela got out of jail and the reason that people lined up and voted and became a multiracial democracy was that some of the voting practices that your father learned here in Atlanta, he took to Africa with him. And that's the way it is all over the world. And that's what's up for grabs now. The people who are running, some are very, very, very rich. In fact, I saw an ad that said that they are the 2 richest senators in the Senate.
In the Senate, yes.
And the others are not broke, but they're not rich either. Preachers look good, but preachers don't have any money. And the other young fella is a young fella who hadn't been around long enough to make a lot of money, but he's done a lot of good. Now, That's the choice. And if the two rich people win, they're going to try to keep everything in their pockets. Because the other two are put there basically by working people. And the term I like, I don't like, I've switched on working people anymore now. For me, the essential workers.
Yes.
Because the essential workers includes everybody. It includes teachers, it includes nurses, it includes doctors, it includes sanitation workers, it includes police officers, and it includes the people who run the water and sewer system and the electricity. You can't run a city without them. And let me put a plug in here to say that in addition to those two races for the Senate seats, there's also a race for the Public Service Commission.
Yes, Public Service
and
Commission.
He's the one that has a vote on what your light bill is going to be. And if you got air conditioning, it's going to be getting hotter and your bills are going to be getting higher. And we have not been represented on the Public Service Commission. I think this is the first time we will have an opportunity to elect a minority to the Public Service Commission. When everybody pays a light bill. But I think you get the point I'm talking about. That this is what we're voting for.
And Ambassador, can you interject about Vice President-elect, what her role will be in terms of the tiebreaker?
Well, that's right. That the Vice President-elect a young lady who graduated from Howard University, where I graduated. Now, I was 50 years before her, or at least 40. But she will be the deciding vote if it's a tie vote between Democrats and Republicans. But usually our Congress has not been strictly partisan. Usually there are always some Democrats that cross over, or there's some Republicans that cross over. You're not mandated to vote according to your party. You're mandated to vote according to the way your people guide you.
Yeah. Andrea, I would like you to speak a little bit as Ambassador take a sip, a little bit about the work that When We All Vote does and the importance of that, because again, people talk to me all the time about why is it important to join an organization? Why do I have to, commit my time? It's in my brain. I'm being transparent. I don't understand people who don't understand, devoting their time, but to each his own. But speak a little bit about, what you do, why you do, and the collaboration is so important.
Well, we have a program called Voting Squad Captains, where we want people to volunteer and to join and bring their family and their friends on so they can text people and email people about voting and encourage them to get involved. We are also having a concert on July. Oh, I'm all messed up with my J's, but January the 3rd, Sunday, to celebrate Georgia voters. We're having at the amphitheater, the Lakewood Amphitheater. It is a drive-in concert, COVID friendly. We're going to have all of the Atlanta acts from the past and the present to celebrate Georgia organizations and volunteers and voters who've already voted and plan to vote. Because the whole idea, as I said before about when we all vote, is that we are here to enhance and to advocate for voters and enhance what organizations are already doing on the ground. The New Georgia Project is our partner in this. We are going to have videos from volunteers who have been working for years in rural Georgia, in the Black Belt, especially in Augusta, to get people registered to vote and get people out and engage. And so one of the things that we are encouraging people to do is to go to our website, www.whenweallvote.org, and get involved. Either join My School Votes, where we have an organization of high school students and educators, because voting and civic education begins in schools. And most children learn about the civic process in school, in social studies class. And so we want to create children and young people who are going to register to vote when they're 18, because we know that when people vote early, when they vote when they're 18, they are lifelong voters. They continue to vote. We also have a Vote Together initiative, where we are consistently giving grants and encouraging organizations such as New Georgia Project, Pro Georgia, Mi Familia Vota. All of those organizations have been around for a very, very long time to enhance what they're doing on the ground with grassroots in Florida and Georgia and South Carolina. We are also working in civic cities, where we are partnering with mayor's offices to help enhance what they're doing and working with their public through social media. And then also through grassroots organizing to make sure that they have the pulse of their community in mind, and that they are reaching out to them and that they are including them and engaging them. So those are different programs that we have. And we encourage people to go to our website to learn more and to get involved, because it's extremely important. Because we, as my mom told me, God only has our hands. God is a spirit, and, we want to believe that, God's hands reach down and move things, but God works through people, and we're the only people who can create the world that we want. We have the ability to do that. And so we have to know our power, and we have to use it, and we have to use it to uplift and not to tear down, but to uplift others. And so it is very important that people stay engaged, remain engaged, and don't give up. As Ambassador Young said, he's been working on this for over 50 years. And this isn't going to end. This is not something that's going to stop. It is going to continue. And we need people to have the patience and the understanding and the fortitude to stay with it.
That's good. That's good. I appreciate that. Ambassador and Andrea, you can chime in. I was listening to Roland Martin. I really want to give a shout out, Ambassador and Andrea, to Roland Martin. I'm trying to reach out to him. I think personally, he's doing a phenomenal job in covering, as you know, Ambassador, this historic moment that we're memorializing. I heard him say something today that was quite interesting, and I want you to speak to Ambassador. He had a gentleman, I didn't write his name down, that represent the Native American community. And he was saying, you know what I'm talking about. I want you to speak to that. And I was mystified by representation, kept coming in my mind when I was listening to him this morning. Representation. Speak a little bit about that, Ambassador, in terms of representation of all backgrounds. But it was very interesting today when Roland was talking about that.
Well, I think that President-elect Joe Biden, who actually went to the Senate in 1972, the same year I went to Congress. And so I've known him for a long time, and he really is a really great guy. And for the first time, I think, he appointed a Native American as Secretary of the Interior Committee. And that's the committee that has to do with Indian affairs. Now, if there's any group of people that has suffered and been treated worse than we have been, it's the Native Americans. And one of the last things that Dr. King did before he was assassinated was we brought all of the oppressed groups together, and we had 23 different ethnic groups. There were 3 or 4 different. We had young Black people, older Black people, handicapped Black people, and we had poor white people, brown people. There were about 6 different Native American groups, and another 6 or 7 uh, Hispanic groups. And we all met at Pascal's when it was up on Hunter Street. And we went to Washington with the Poor People's Campaign because this was a march of the oppressed, people who have been around working hard, doing what was right for the country, and never benefiting from it as they should have. And we would have been a more successful. In fact, I think that was such a powerful march with all of those different nationalities and ethnic groups, that I think that's probably the reason that Dr. King was killed, because they didn't want him to come to Washington and be the spokesman for all of the oppressed of the earth. And so what I think Roland Martin is pointing out, and I get on his show every time he asks me, because he's trying to give us a message that we can't get on most of the mainstream media. It's the same message that we're talking now, that you don't rate if you don't participate. There's another little story I like to tell about, especially if they're young people who are here. When I ran for Congress in 1972, there was a young man who was about 14 years old. Well, he's too young to vote, and he wanted to help in the campaign. So I gave him some bumper stickers to put on. And he liked doing it, and he got his friends involved, and they put bumper stickers on people's cars all over the West Side and their neighborhood, and asked people to vote for me. I got elected. And I got elected in a pouring down rain. We only had one voting day. We didn't have early voting day. And the day I was elected, I woke up and it was pouring down rain at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I said, Lord, why did you do this to me? My people don't like to get their hair wet. They probably, I was almost ready to give up until I went to the polls and I saw people lined up in the rain. And it rained all day long till 9 o'clock at night. And so many of these people had gotten involved that they were determined to vote. And I got elected. But when I got to the Congress, he was about to finish high school, and he was trying to get into Morehouse. So he just called, and he didn't even ask for congressman. He said, tell Andy that his friend, and I don't want to use his name, but say his friend from his neighborhood is on the phone for him. So I said, I know who he is. And he called. So, and I talked to him. He said, look, you the congressman. Can you help me get into Morehouse? And I said, sure. I said, that's what this seat is for. This seat is to help our constituents. And you help me get elected. I could write a letter to help you get into Morehouse. I wrote a letter. He got into Morehouse. I was 4 years in the Congress and then went to the UN. And sure enough, I got a call at the UN. Same little fella. He said, you know, I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm trying to get into law school. And I said, okay. I said, how are your grades? Well, they could be better. But if you, my congressman, if you can write a good letter, you might be able to help me get in law school. So I said, well, I know the dean at Howard's Law School. So I called the dean and I told him, I said, look, this little fella is smart as he can be, but he's just like I was when I was in school. Sorry. And but I said, I think if you give him a chance, he'll do well. So he got into Howard's Law School. I was at the UN 3 years. He was in law school 3 years. I get out and I end up running for mayor because nobody else, they felt that nobody else could, well, the business community had decided they didn't want any more black mayors. And they believed that people would not invest in cities that were led by black mayors. And that just wasn't true.
That's right.
So I ran for mayor and got elected. And we decided we were going to expand the airport. We needed money. So I was going to Wall Street looking for $300 million. And that's a lot of money.
Yes.
And we were going to get it from Wall Street because we didn't want to raise taxes on the citizens. And so we had designed it so that everybody that's working at the airport would pay some part of the tax exempt municipal bond. So I go up to this Wall Street, and I'd never been in a Wall Street law firm before. And who was on the other side of the table? They had all of these contracts I had to sign. But it was that same kid who was putting bumper stickers on that I had been nursing through law school. Just helping him on. I didn't give him any money. All I did was give him a good recommendation. So I said, what are you doing here? He said, I'm here to show you how to get this $300 million. And I said, what are they going to give you? He said, well, my firm will make $600,000 on this one deal. I said, you going to make $600,000 in one day? And it's going to take me 3 years. I mean, my whole 8 years to make that much money. And he said, well, you should have gone to law school. But every mayor has gone to Wall Street and bought back money to expand that airport. And that airport generates over 1 million jobs and I don't know how many $1 billion, but that's a political decision. And the person who is the mayor determines how that money goes, how we get that money, first of all, and how we pay it back. Now it's going to be hard now because the airport was the biggest. It was the biggest in the world last year.
Right.
110 million passengers.
Mm-hmm.
And we're probably down to about 30, 40 million now. But we'll come back up.
Absolutely.
And that's why we need to keep the city together, and we need to be concerned about our children in schools and how they're studying and what they're learning. And we've got to prepare them while they're little kids. I never thought it made much difference, but I was 9 years old in Bela C. Jones School in New Orleans, Louisiana. And our teacher took us down to the federal courthouse. And I didn't know what he was doing, but I saw Thurgood Marshall argue a case in federal court when I was 9. And all I remember was this was the smartest, best looking, baddest talking black man I had ever seen. because he had those judges and those clerks running back in there, looking all up the cases that he was calling out. And when they come back with the book, he tell them, Your Honor, I think you find that case on page 322. He turned that. I mean, he had it right down. And I said, I have never met a brother this bad. And that was Thurgood Marshall, who by the time I got to the Congress was going into the Supreme Court, and who swore me in as ambassador to the United Nations. But
wow.
I had been following him since I was 9 years old.
You know, I have to take a breath right now. As we round down, we have a few more minutes for the listening audience. If anyone has a question, please put it in the comments so I can ask it. But I'm just exhaling from this richness, our heritage, our legacy, what's going on. And Ambassador, you know my hat's always off to you. You know, I'm extremely humble to even know you, being in the same space and for us to work together. Andrea, we know we have a relationship. It's called collaboration. And I want to really drive home tonight to the listening audience how important not only voting is, as Ambassador says, how is important your voice is, and how if anyone says, I don't understand voting and what my voting means, you have to really take a seat back and understand all this information we're giving. I know Ambassador and I know Andrew personally, they don't have to take the time to answer my call to come on this platform to speak, because I know they already work 24/7 as I do concerning voting. I am going to do a clarion call to the entire audience. Please listen, learn, stay woke, stay informed. I don't know however words I can express the importance of this particular election for such a time as this. December 31st is tomorrow, and it does indicate the last day of the early voting, not voting, but just early voting. It's open to polls from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. But again, that varies on the counties that you live in. I urge you to use the visual aids that we have tons of information. There's an app called vote411.org, powered by the League of Women Voters. You can go on whenweallvote.org. Andrea's organization she represents for First Lady Michelle Obama. I can go on and on. My point is, for those people, you can Google. I know we all know about, you can Google just about anything. There's no excuse. There's no reason for anyone to say my vote doesn't count. My voice doesn't matter. Oh, it's not that important. It is extremely important. This is one of the reasons why I've been bringing this platform today, every day, and all day until we will never stop on January 5th. I want people to comment and ask questions as I close out, but I want Ambassador Andrew Young and Andrea as my guests to leave some parting words to the audience. I know I'm talking to moms and dads and sisters and brothers and diversity, white, black, green, gray. I mean what I say. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. It doesn't matter your ethnicity. What matters is your voice to vote. People died, led to get to where we are today. I do not take what I'm at for granted. And what I want to say is, Ambassador, thank you in front of the public. Andrea, I'm very serious about what I do. I will continue to do what I do. Voting never ends. Once this election is over, then there's more elections. For those of you who've been following me, we had Felicia Moore yesterday, who's the president of the City Council of Atlanta. And she impressed. The beat goes on and on. It never stops. So in this platform, in this small space that we're in, people want to ask Ambassador a question, please put it out there. I'll ask him. I'll ask Andrea, but I want Ambassador and Andrea to both speak from their hearts, like I know they can, to impress upon who has not voted to please get out and vote, and the urgency behind that. So Andrea, you can go first, and then we'll let Ambassador close out.
Thank you so much, Linda, for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. And Ambassador Young, it's so wonderful to see you. Thank you so much for letting me share this space with you. And for those people out there who are on the fence about voting or wondering whether they should make a plan to vote by January the 5th, let me impress upon you the importance of why voting matters. And I'll leave with you with this saying that I remember hearing a long time ago. Those who make the rules rule the world. Those who make decisions about how things are going to take place rule the world. They rule your world, meaning they decide what money you get, what roads get paid, what interest you earn. All of the things that come about in your day-to-day life depend on who you vote for, who you put in positions of power, and then who those people who you vote for or who win put in positions of power, because there are a lot of appointed positions that people put in, the administrators, the people who are looking at the plans and the public works and all of the things that go into play to make your life better and make your life more enjoyable, and your ability to be able to be mobile and move up in your family and your generation. So I encourage you to look at it from the future standpoint and realize that who it is that you want to be in that position of power, who you believe has your interest, who you believe can help you achieve the dreams and the goals that you want. Look at it from that standpoint, because it is personal. It is very personal, and it matters. It matters. It matters whether it's 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 votes. It matters. And so I encourage you to think about the power structure and how it can affect you either positively and or negatively. And if you don't vote, believe me, it will be negative. So thank you so much.
You know, there's so much in our lives that has been determined by one vote. The difference between us staying in slavery almost, I think that was 1876, the Hayes-Tilden Compromise that pulled the Union troops out of the South and let the Ku Klux Klan take us over and put us back into slavery. That election was one vote. It was decided by one vote. After Dr. King's death, the people got discouraged and they were depressed, and the race between Hubert Humphrey and Richard Nixon was decided by one vote per precinct nationwide. One vote can make a big difference. My election as to Congress in 1972, if we had not had people get up and go out in the rain to cast those ballots, and it poured down rain, and we had 74% of the Black community turn out to vote in the rain, because we only had one day then. And that was 1972. And people were so impressed with the way we got the vote out. Maynard was running in 1973, and Jesse Hill at Atlanta Life said, "Andy, can you get along without your staff? But, you know, hire a few people up in Washington. We need to keep your staff here." So my staff stayed here, and they ran the same kind of campaign for Maynard Jackson that they'd run for me. And Maynard Jackson became the mayor. And we've had this city moving forward ever since. Now we got a long way to go, but we sure have come a long way. And freedom is a constant struggle that we're not going to ever get free enough, and we're not going to ever have what we really need. Our vote helps us perfect this nation and make it look more like the kingdom of God. And so you can almost vote your way into heaven. Sure, the AME church will tell you, you're sure not going to get into heaven if you're not voting. If you're not voting, if you're not working to make this earth more like God's kingdom, I don't know what, you're going to need a lot of grace and mercy when you get to the end of your trail. And so it's really been my purpose in life. It's all been revolved around the vote. And Andrea, your Olympic thing, the reason I was able to go after the Olympics was that a young lady who is in the hospital now by the name of Maggie Womack gave me a little book that had a list of all of the votes in the Olympics. And they weren't but 85 people voting. Mm. And I counted down there and I said, I don't know these people personally, but I know somebody who knows them. And I think we can get 55 of those 85 votes. And the decision to go after the Olympics was based on the vote. And we didn't get but 53 of the votes. But two of the people who would have voted for us couldn't make it. One was from Kenya and one was from Italy, and they couldn't make it. They were too old to make it to Tokyo. So we won on the 53 votes. And so when you go to buy a house, somebody in a boardroom is going to vote on whether or not you get a mortgage or not. Voting is going to be, it's going to determine your life. In my household, I had my wife and my children always ganged up on me. And if I didn't organize and get them voting for me, didn't matter what I thought I was and how much my money I brought home. The truth of it is, I've been married to two school teachers, and they always brought more money home than I did. So I didn't have enough votes with my daughters and my school teachers against me. So I had to lobby and I had to work on every vote in my life. And I've enjoyed the work and I've enjoyed the results. And I could not have imagined, I couldn't have dreamed of a better life than the life that I've had. I mean, I grew up in New Orleans with the Nazi party on the corner of my house. And that was before World War II. But we've been able to vote our way up the ladder, but we still got a long way to go. So God bless you all, and thanks, Bella, for a good evening.
I appreciate your time. I'm going to make one comment. People are commenting, and I know I don't want to belabor long, but Gwen McClellan, who I know personally, she's from California, Ambassador. She got a great strategy. I'm going to really call her out. And Gwen McClellan from California says, strategic, consistent platforms to be created, the think tanks in each city, etc., conferences that teaches strategic planning for empowerment. I love that, Ambassador. Thank you, Gwen. I feel the same way. That's a great recommendation. I wanted you all to comment about that, but more importantly, I'm about action. You know how I am, Ambassador, and you know how I am, Andrea. That's a great opportunity. What do you think, Ambassador and Andrea?
I think it's extremely important. We cannot stop what we're doing. We had a lot of momentum coming out of the general election and then going into the runoff election. Over 1.4 million people have already voted in the runoff election. That is historic. And so we can't just sit back now after January 5th and just kind of just sit and wait. We have to keep moving and keep growing. We have elections coming up in 2021. We have elections coming up in 2022. And then we have another big election coming up in 2024. It's not going to end. So we have to build up on the momentum. We have to keep it going. And we have to focus, to me, in my opinion, on the South. We can't keep letting go of the South. The South has potential. It has an enormous amount of people, especially in rural areas, who can register to vote and can get out the vote if they are addressed, if they are reached out to, and if funding and money comes their way. And so I am all for that. I am here to help in any way, shape, or form. I live in Atlanta. Georgia is my home. I am all about continuing this process and moving forward. So any way I can help, just let me know I'm there.
Thank you. I'm going to take you up on it. Ambassador?
God bless you.
Well, as we conclude the night, it's a lot of comments. I know the ambassador is getting late in the hour. I want to thank the audience. There's a lot of information. I'm going to make sure Ambassador and Andrea get all of these comments. But I want to take us out with Reginald, but I want to thank everybody. Vote, vote, vote. And I'm going to put you on the spot, Ambassador and Andrea. I want to bring you both back along with 8 other people I've interviewed over the last week or two. So after January 5th, Andrea, we don't know what's going to happen, Ambassador and Andrea, but I tell you this, we're going to talk about it. So I'm encouraging you, Ambassador. We're going to get back on here after next week. Andrea, we're going to bring, Felicia Moore and Michael Junior Bond and Murray Peck Hector and Helen Butler. We're going to bring all the leaders and the foot soldiers, Ambassador, to come together at a round table and discuss what Gwen said about let's do some strategic alignment in each city. Will y'all take me up on that? Ambassador, okay. I got you on tape. So without further ado, right. I'd like to thank you, Ambassador. I'd like to bring Reginald Harris back on to close us out. I love you all. Thank you, audience. Please listen to the audience. Please listen to Reginald, and please remember, stay woke, stay informed, and vote. Come on, Reginald, take us out.
Mm-hmm.